Hello there! Welcome to the Torch channel. Today let us talk about Phil-IRI. What are the essential information about Phil-IRI? Here is what you need to know about Phil-IRI. The Philippine Informal Reading Inventory, or Phil-IRI, is an assessment tool composed of graded passages designed to determine a student's reading level. It is used as a classroom-based assessment tool aims to measure and describe the learner's reading performance in both English and Filipino languages in oral reading, silent reading, and listening comprehension. These three types of assessment aim to determine the leader's independent, instructional, and frustration levels. It also refers to the revised assessment tool composed of a set of graded passages administered to the whole class and individual students, which was designed to determine a student's reading level. So this definition is based on the manual of this Phil-IRI and on Debit Order number 14 series of 2018. Now, why was the Phil-IRI was developed? In support of this Every Child a Reader program, or the ECARP, and it was developed because it provides information about the student's current reading levels and abilities, and it is one of the diagnostic tools that teachers can use to determine students' abilities and needs in reading. What are the flexible ways to use Phil-IRI? So we have four. We have group reading level, individual reading level, monitor growth and response to intervention, and describe reading behaviors. Now, what can Phil-IRI tell the teachers? The Phil-IRI group screening test can tell teachers whether students are reading at, above, or below their grade levels. You will learn more of this as we go along. The individually administered Phil-IRI graded passages can be used to assess students' oral reading, silent reading comprehension, and or listening comprehension levels. Now, what is the scope? So, Phil-IRI, all students in grade 3 to grade 6 will undergo the Phil-IRI group screening test in Filipino. But in English, all students in grade 4 to 6 will undergo the Phil-IRI group screening test. Students identified to be performing below level of expectation, or those with a total raw score below 14 in the Phil-IRI GST, should undergo further assessment through the individually administered Phil-IRI graded passages. Now, what is the Phil-IRI GST, or group screening test? It is a 20-item group-administered reading comprehension test for each grade level, covering grade 3 to grade 6 in Filipino and grade 4 to grade 6 in English. The Phil-IRI group screening test can tell the teachers whether students are reading at, below, or above their grade levels, based from their raw score. Now, what is Phil-IRI graded passages? It refers to informal assessment tools used to assess and record individual students' performance in oral reading, silent reading, listening comprehension. Now, the question is, do we have to administer these three types of assessment to the learners? So, you will learn more of this as we go along. There are four sets A, B, C, and D of passages for both Filipino and English, spanning kindergarten to grade 7 levels, which can be used for both pre-testing and post-testing. The Phil-IRI oral reading test is administered in order to identify the student's miscues in oral reading, record the number of words that a student reads per minute, find out how well a student understands the passage read. Now, what do we assess in oral reading? We have decoding, word recognition, fluency, and comprehension. how do we mark and score the oral reading miscues? So there are 8 types of miscues, but only 7 of these are counted as one error. We have the first type is mispronunciation. So how are you going to mark it? You have to underline the text and write the phonetic spelling above it. For example, the word is slide and the child pronounced it as slid. So it is counted as one error. But take note, the dialectal variation should not be counted as an error. The second type of miscue is omission. Circle the omitted unit of a language. So the example, the huge elephant. So the child only read the elephant because he or she omitted the word huge. Maybe that word is too hard for her or him. The third one is substitution. Underline the text and write the substituted word above it. So instead of monkey, the child reads money. So it is one error. Insertion. So you are going to mark that by using a caret to show where the word or words was inserted and write the word above the caret. So for example, on the passage is the flowers in the vase, but the child read it as the lovely flowers in the vase. So it is counted as an error. Next is we have repetition. Underline the portion of the text that was repeated. So the example is, they found it in the, but the child reads it as they found it in the, so that is counted as one error. She repeated the words in the, although 2 words, but it is just counted as one error. Next is transposition. Use a transpositional symbol over and under the letters or words transposed. So what is transposition? It is exchanging the 2 consecutive letters. So for example, the girl is pretty, but the child read it as the girl see pretty instead of the girl is pretty. So it is counted as one error. Reversal. Write the word or non-word above the correct word. So the word is bad, but the child read it as dab. So it is counted as one error. Now we have a type of miscue which is not recorded or not counted. It is called self-correction. Write S above the word that was self-corrected, meaning the child here self-correct or corrected the word that he or she has read within herself or himself. Now, how do we compute the oral reading score per passage? The computation of the oral reading score involves counting the numbers of miscues during oral reading. So, dahil alam na natin kung paano yung pag-mark, so let us see this example. Oral reading score. This is the formula, the number of words minus the number of miscues over or divided by the number of words. You have to times it or multiply it by 100. Example, Pedro's performance in oral reading. So, the number of words in the passage is 65, but Pedro committed 15 miscues. So, 65, the total number of words in the passage, minus the number of miscues that Pedro committed, which is 15. So, that is equals to 50, and divided by the total number of words in the passage, which is 65, and multiply it by 100. So, by that, we get 76.9%. So, that is Pedro's rating in oral reading. 76.9%. Now, how do we record the speed and rate in oral reading? So Pedro was asked to read the passage The Snail with the Biggest House, a grade 5 pre-test passage which has 103 words. It took him 1.5 minutes. In seconds, it is 90 seconds to read the passage. So here is the formula for reading speed. Number of words read divided by the reading time in seconds and multiply it by 60. So in case of Pedro, he has 103 words to read or read divided by 90 seconds is equals to 69 words per minute. So that is the speed and rate or reading speed of. Next is how do we compute the student's comprehension of the passage? So after the selection, there is what we call comprehension questions. Sometimes it varies because some has 7 comprehension questions, some has 6, 5, and 8. Okay, in case of Pedro, the total comprehension question is 7. So the comprehension formula is number of correct answers divided by number of questions times 100 equals the percent of comprehension. Case of Pedro, his correct answers is 4 and the total number of questions is 7. So 4 divided by 7, that is equals to 57. Pedro's comprehension now is 57%. Now let's look at this table. So this is what I'm talking about. Table 6 presents to you the table of percentage for comprehension scores. So in here, we have 4 number of items, 4 table. Number of items, 5. And then, andyan din po yung score in comprehension and the percentage. For the number of items, 5, kapag ka naka 5 ka, of course, that is 100. 480, 360, 240, 1 in 20. So, ganun din po sa ibang table. In case of Pedro, meron siyang 7 items. His score is 4, kaya you can see in the table that he got 57% for comprehension scores. Okay. Now, table 7, dito sa baba, it is the oral reading profile. So, oral reading level, kapag independent ka, meaning you have the score of 97 to 100% in word reading score. And in comprehension score, you got 80 to 100%. You are independent. Instructional, word reading score mo is 90 to 96%. And comprehension score is 59 to 79%. If you are in the frustration level, you got the score in word reading score 89% and below. So comprehension naman 58% and below. Now let's try to look at this illustration. So, word reading score 15 miscues 76.9%. That is frustration. Sabi kanina doon sa table 7, no, nasa frustration siya ang range ng kanyang percentage. Comprehension score 4 out of 7, 57% frustration pa rin siya. And then the reading rate is 69.5 words per minute. Meaning, the oral reading profile of Carlo is frustration. So let us try to look at the table 8. So this shows the student's reading profile per passage. Okay. If you have a word reading score of 76.9% and you are frustration, look at the table 8. And then comprehension is also frustration, your oral reading profile is frustration. If you are frustration in word reading and the child is instructional in the reading comprehension, it is still frustration. If the child is instructional in the word reading and and frustration in the reading comprehension it is frustration. However, if the child is instructional in word reading and independent in reading comprehension, he or she is now instructional. If he or she is independent in word reading, instructional in reading comprehension, then he or she is instructional. If he or she is independent in word reading and the child is independent in reading comprehension, of course, the reading profile of that child is independent. Okay. Now, let us go back to the question I have asked you before we start. Do we have to administer the 3 types of assessment? The answer is here. The Phil-IRI silent reading test may be administered after the oral reading test is conducted. This is an optional activity. Again, this is an optional activity. But if you have the time to administer this, you have to administer it right after the oral reading test is conducted. Now, what skills are being assessed in this type of reading test? We have the reading speed and the silent reading comprehension. Now, the Phil-IRI listening comprehension is administered when the student is identified as a non-reader. Again, this is an optional test. Okay? The purpose is to find out how well a student understands the selection which will be read by the test administrator or teacher. Then the test administrator reads the multiple choice questions and the student answers them orally. So this is how you conduct listening comprehension. And again, this is administered to the student who is identified as a non-reader. For all 3 types of individual assessments, oral reading comprehension, listening comprehension, and silent reading comprehension, the aim is to find the learner's independent, instructional, and frustration levels. Now, how do we administer Phil-IRI? There are 4 stages. So we have the stage 1, initial screening using the Phil-IRI group screening test. So sino po ang iti-test dito? Lahat po ng bata ninyo, grades 3 to grade 6 sa Filipino, grade 4 to grade 6 sa English ay mag-undergo ng group screening test. Base dyan sa group screening test mo, you will now conduct the Phil-IRI graded passages. So, yung tinatawag nating pre-test. And after that, you have to provide specialist instruction or intervention. Mamaya po malalaman nyo kung kanino. And administration of the Phil-IRI graded passages or post-test. Okay. Now, this is the figure for you to be able to understand it well. Okay. Here is the stages and administration of Phil-IRI. Kailan natin ina-administer ang Phil-IRI? So, yung stage 1 po, and it is to be administered during the first quarter or June to July. Yan po. And the 3rd stage is 2nd and 3rd quarter. And the last stage is on 4th quarter, that is February to March. Okay, let's talk about the initial screening or the GST. So, gaya na sabi ko kanina, all grades 3 to 6 will undergo the Phil-IRI group screening test in Filipino and grades 4 to 6 in English. Now, if the raw score of the child is equal or more than 14, the students will no longer be subject for further testing, meaning no need for reading remediation. But the student continues receiving classroom instruction. Now, dito tayo sa raw score, which is less than 14. So, 13 and below, student undergoes further assessment. Ito na po yung tinatawag natin na stage 2, which is the Phil-IRI graded passages, or individually po natin itong ina-administer sa ating mga bata, both English and Filipino. Now, part naman po doon sa assessment, the silent reading Sa English and Filipino, it is optional. And then optional din po yung listening pretest for English and Filipino. Okay? So now, the stage 3, we have the provision of reading intervention. So, if you already identify who are those in the instructional frustration level or those students who got 13 and below scores, you will now provide reading intervention, either individualized or small group instruction. Now the stage 4, which is the administration of the Phil-IRI post-test in English and Filipino. After mo mag-administer, no, the reports is to be submitted to the principal. Now, what is the starting point for the graded passages? Assume that you already conducted the GST. So 14 points and above, you have to discontinue the testing. Those who got 13 points, 8 to 13 points, you will give graded passages which is 2 grade levels lower than their current level. So for example, so GST, the child got the score of 8 to 13 points. So if he or she is in grade 3, then ang ibibigay mo, you have to lower 2 grade levels than the current level. Ibibigay mo po ay grade 1 passage. And then if the child got 0 to 7 points and he or she is in grade 6, the passage will be lowered to 3 grade levels. So if he or she is in grade 6, bibigyan mo siya ng passage na grade 3. Okay, now this is a comprehensive presentation of the stage 2, which is the administration of the oral reading test using the Phil-IRI graded passages. So sa step 1, there are 3 steps. The first one is to determine the starting point of graded passages. Now the starting point, you already have identified the starting point, and then you already computed the scores in word reading and comprehension so that you can identify if independent, instructional, and frustration level ba ang bata. But that does not end. Okay? So, ganito yan. If performance ng bata ay independent level, assuming that he or she is in grade 4 and independent level na siya, to find the instructional level, you have to give her higher grade level text. And then, if you want to find the frustration level, you also have to give another higher level. And then, if the performance of the child is in the instructional level, you have to give a text that is grade level higher to find the frustration level. Okay? If the performance is the frustration level, give a grade level text that is lower to find the instructional level. So, kapag na-identify mo ng instructional level ng bata, you also have to give another grade level text lower to find the independent level. So, you just have to repeat instructions till you find the identified reading level of the pupils. And then on step 3, you have to, this is optional, you have to administer listening comprehension for non-readers and silent reading. No? The purpose is to further check the students' reading comprehension. But it is, again, optional. Now, when should the Phil-IRI be administered? Table 1 shows the schedule of Phil-IRI administration for both Filipino and English. So, type of test, mag-GST ka within the first or second month of the year. And then, magpo-post-test ka within January to February of the school year. Okay, individualized Phil-IRI assessment. So, this is only for pupils who did not pass the GST. So, within a month after the GST is administered. How long does it take to administer the Phil-IRI? So for Phil-IRI GST or group screening test, it is just 30 minutes. But for Phil-IRI graded passages, it varies per student. Now, who can administer the Phil-IRI? All Filipino subject teachers for grade 3 to 6 and English subject teachers for grades 4 to 6 can administer the Phil-IRI group screening test in their respective classes. ELLN trained teachers can administer the Phil-IRI graded passages to individual students who need further assessment. And the region or division can also conduct training programs to teachers on the conduct of Phil-IRI. And this is a reminder for those teachers who will administer the Phil-IRI, they should read the manual thoroughly and prepare all the necessary materials and forms prior to the scheduled date of the test or administration. Now, how do we get a copy of the Phil-IRI materials? We can get from the LR portal, and schools are advised to use the MOOE funds for the reproduction and distribution of the materials to teachers. So with that, thank you all for listening, and I hope that you can join me on my next video. If you like this video and you want to see more, just hit the notification bell and give us a thumbs up. Thank you. See you again.